What's up, guys? It's Rob here, and we have some very exciting stuff to talk about today. We're about to take a look at the chart, and you guys are going to see just how far up these cannabis stocks have pumped off of this news that we're about to talk about. So take a look real quick right here. You can see that Sundial is up over 7%, Tilray up over 13%, Chronos up almost 20%, Msos up over 8, OGI up over 6, ACB up over 7, Hexo up over 12, and CGC up over 6%. There is huge news brewing in the cannabis space. There's news of legalization potentially on the horizon. There's a new bill that's coming out. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about what it means for all of these cannabis-related stocks. So first of all, the headline, the news: Republican-led bill to legalize and tax marijuana emerges as alternative to Democratic measures. So this is actually really good, right? The fact that legalization talks are coming from Republicans, because we already know Democrats are on board with it. They want legalization. Republicans are now actually putting forward measures for legalization. So there should be no excuse anymore in Congress to not be legalizing marijuana pretty soon, right? So I've broken down this article for you guys so it's more easy to understand, and we're going to talk about stuff that's in the bill as well, so stay tuned for that. But basically, a new Republican-led congressional marijuana legalization bill is imminent. Okay, it's led by Representative Nancy Mace. She's a Republican from South Carolina, and it's titled the States Reform Act. Now, it's currently being circulated among stakeholders, so basically lobbyists, right? They're going to, you know how the government works, they're going to put in whatever they want, and so be it, right? That's just how bills are done these days. But a final version is expected to be officially filed later this month. So far, it's just the draft version, and we'll have to see what those stakeholders actually include in the bill. But we won't know until later this month. But the bill is aiming to federally deschedule marijuana and create a regulatory schematic for it, but still ensure that existing states' markets are not unduly burdened or undermined by the new rules. So basically, they don't want to interfere too much with the states that have already legalized, the states that already have dispensaries and all that kind of stuff set up, their own infrastructure. They don't want to mess that up by changing the rules here. They want it to work with the states that currently have legalization going. Now, a rundown of what's actually going to be included in the bill is cannabis would be federally descheduled and treated in a manner similar to alcohol. So very good stuff. Basically, just legalizing it, and people can then buy and sell it like alcohol. So really awesome. A 3.7% excise tax would be imposed on cannabis sales, understandable, and this tax would then be used to pay for some community reentry, law enforcement, and small business administration aid for newly licensed businesses. And it would be regulated by the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, at least with regard to interstate commerce. So they would be regulating it when cannabis is crossing state lines. The Food and Drug Administration, though, would be limited in its regulatory authority. They would have no more control over cannabis than it does for alcohol unless it's medical cannabis, okay? So the FDA is not going to be too stringent on cannabis sales, at least not recreational cannabis sales. Now, I'm not sure if that refers to edibles, right? Because that does technically have food in it. It might be a little bit more under the FDA's administration, right? If they actually end up, selling like cookies or something like that, then maybe there could be bad ingredients, and maybe the FDA will have to take a little bit more of a stance on edibles. But at least for smokable cannabis, they won't have many regulatory. Don't have much regulatory authority. So raw cannabis would be considered an agricultural commodity and regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The legalization would grandfather existing state licensed cannabis operators, right? So this is kind of going along with the idea that the government doesn't want to mess with the existing state laws. They just want, everything that the states are doing that's working to continue working. No questions asked, right? They want to grandfather those cannabis operators into the federal system. So that's really good stuff, right? It's not going to mess with the existing businesses all that much. It's only actually probably going to fuel more people being interested in it now that it's federally accepted. So people with certain federal cannabis convictions, this is really important, that were nonviolent would be eligible for expungement. So basically saying people who are held in federal prisons because of cannabis-related crimes would actually be able to get out of prison, which is really good. People really shouldn't be locked up, in my opinion, for that kind of stuff. So it's really good to see that they will be getting out of prison, or at least be eligible to get out, as long as they haven't done anything violent. So unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your stance, the mandatory age limit of 21 is going to be implemented for cannabis, much like alcohol. I know a lot of people think that the age limit for alcohol should be reduced, but they will be implementing this the same age, 21 years old to use cannabis. Same for alcohol. So that's understandable. It falls in line. It wouldn't make sense to really split up the ages that much. But we'll see what goes on with that in the future, right? If they end up reducing the age to 18 for both, we'll see. So the SBA also needs to treat marijuana businesses fairly and regulate them the same as they regulate other markets. So that's just a good, part to have in the bill. Just to make sure that the SBA doesn't unfairly discriminate against marijuana-related businesses. And it also states that veterans can't face discrimination in federal hiring due to cannabis use, and that doctors would be specifically authorized to issue recommendations for medical cannabis for veterans. So that's good stuff. Hopefully, it can help some veterans with the medical cannabis, but federal agencies could continue to drug test for marijuana. So it's noted there, right, that they can discriminate somewhat. Now, the one downside, right, and before I say the downside, we'll say that, this bill is a long time coming because there is a poll that came out recently. 68% of U.S. adults said they back legalizing cannabis, and that includes majorities of Democrats, Republicans, and independents. So pretty much everyone wants this for the most part. However, one key person who doesn't want it is President Joe Biden. He continues to oppose adult use legalization. And whether he'd sign any Democratic or Republican-led legalization bill is an open question. So we don't know if Biden's going to sign it. We don't know what he's going to say. Hopefully, he just goes with the flow, right? If 68% of people want it, and there's a bill on the floor and it ends up passing the House and the Senate, then it really seems like the kind of thing Biden should sign. But it's obviously going to be up to him, right? And he's not been unknown to change his mind. So he has changed his mind on things in the past. We'll see if he changes his mind on this. Now, right here, I do have a list of the largest cannabis companies, and it's actually going to be very interesting to see how this list changes because you can see some of the top companies are Canadian companies, right? A lot of these companies are Canadian, and it's going to be interesting to see how once this is legalized and there's safe banking and these companies, these U.S. companies can actually be listed on the NASDAQ and whatnot. It's going to be interesting to see how the market caps may switch, how some of them may gain a lot more market share than some of the Canadian companies potentially, or maybe vice versa, right? It's potentially possible that Canadian companies are going to swarm into the U.S. With all the cannabis that they've already been allowed to legally grow and flood the market with Canadian cannabis. We'll have to see who wins that battle, right? It'll be very interesting to watch that play out. However, I prefer to have a diversified approach, right? I'm in both Canadian and U.S. companies, so that's my stance on it. Not financial advice for you guys, though, right? Now, you can see Sundial and Tilray, this is what I'm using to exemplify how the news hasn't even quite taken off yet, right? You can see over the past week, these are Google Trends rankings for both Sundial and Tilray stock. And they're only slightly higher today, just ever so slightly higher. So people really haven't even taken to this news that much yet. And you can already see we're up massively percentage-wise on these companies, right? All of these companies are turning into buys. People are trying to buy these companies, these stocks. They're moving up in price with Sundial. We'll have to see if we can't get past 70 cents. But really, people haven't even taken that much more notice in the fact that this bill is out. Not that many people, at least, right? The search rankings are relatively steady over the past week, and we just found out about this today. So really good stuff. And you can see, once again, on Reddit and Wall Street Bets, they've barely moved up in the rankings, right? The Sundial is up to spot number 28. Tilray is up to spot number 26 on Reddit and Wall Street Bets. So you still have to scroll down fairly far to even see them listed here. So there is potential that they will be moving up over the next couple of days as people really start talking about the final wording in this bill, as we actually get a final draft and see how much support there is for it in the House. It'll be really interesting to see these stocks potentially be taking off on Reddit as well as StockTwits, right? Tilray is already the number 3 trending stock. When I looked earlier, it was the number 4. So during the course of, the past couple of minutes that we've been talking, Tilray has already moved up in the rankings on StockTwits. People are very interested in it. Sundial hasn't quite gotten here yet, but neither of them are on the most active yet. So once again, very early to be talking about these stocks. They have not pumped up all that much yet. Only not even 20%. Most of them haven't pumped up 20%. And this is the best news that we've had in a while. And if you look at the long term, you can see that these stocks are still down massively, right? They've only pumped up a very small amount off of this news. This is obviously, the first day that we're really talking about it. So there's still a lot of potential for them to be moving up in the future. They're nowhere near their all-time highs. All of these stocks have been hurt quite a bit. Sundial, Tilray, Cronos, Msos, Organigram, Aurora Cannabis, Hexo, and Canopy Growth. So a lot of these stocks have big movements to make, in my opinion, especially if we actually end up getting this bill passed. If this actually gets passed, that would be a game changer for these cannabis stocks. I'm very hopeful that we could be seeing this sometime early in 2022. It's getting a little bit late for this to actually pass and be signed and implemented by the end of 2021. We have less than 2 months left. So you know how the government goes. It's always slow going with the government. So I don't expect that will happen. But I think that by 2022, we could have this thing all sorted out. That's my hope, at least. Obviously, this bill could get shot down. It could get thrown in the trash. We've been faked out a bunch of times. That's why I'm just holding these cannabis stocks, waiting for the day that legalization happens, not necessarily buying into the hype. but continuing to hold through the hype. So that's my opinion. None of this is financial advice. I'm not recommending to you guys whether you should buy or sell or do whatever. I'm just giving you guys my opinion and breaking down some of the news for you. So if you appreciate it, feel free to drop a like on the video and get 2 free stocks in the description of this video, valued up to $2,300 on WEBULL. Other than that, guys, have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.